Basically, whatever. Dom steals a nuclear football from the Russian Ministry of Defense.
What?
There's magnets involved.
What are you talking about? Go back to what you just said. What are you talking about?
Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello. This is Che.
This is Cory.
And this is the Next Time On Podcast, a podcast where two lifelong friends discuss all things amazing and all things fed in popular culture in sort of a celebration of approaching our 300th episode. And also because I've sort of grown tired of the duo thing. I thought I'd start a new thing. And I'm just realizing I put a placeholder name in and didn't remember to change the name. So this segment is currently called the Take Tornado.
Okay.
In which I give Cory a take unprompted at the opening of the episode, and he gives his reaction to the take, and then we start the episode.
Fair enough.
I realized the other day when I came across a strange film that has just been released on VOD about a giant shark in Mexico, that shark movies are the biggest bait in all of film history. I would contend there's only been one, maybe two good shark movies ever. Now, admittedly, the one is Jaws.
Oh, what's the second?
I don't. Some people say The Shallows, but The Shallows is not good.
What about Deep Blue Sea? Is that a bad movie?
Deep Blue Sea is bad. Deep Blue Sea is fun, but it is a shit movie.
Well, yes, now we have an idea of what's going to be on the Curse of the Rewatch, ladies and gentlemen.
But so what do you think of the take? There's one good shark movie, and shark movies are a bait, and we should probably stop making them.
I agree. I mean, at this point, like, big fish in the water isn't that scary anymore.
I still have, honestly, for me, big fish in the water is top 5 fear. I got real megalophobia.
Oh, no. I am the same, but it's very easy for me to avoid that. Mm-hmm. Like, I could just not get in water that has... Yeah. Exactly. I can avoid that. But even at the same time, like, land creatures aren't that scary of movies either. Yeah. Like, bear movies, it's a fucking bear. Like, the fuck else am I, like...
Yeah, I'm the only person that saw Beast, so you're right.
I think you are the only person who saw Beast.
But shout out to
honestly, though, like, maybe mountain lions, like, descending on a small town, that would be terrifying.
Like a pack of mountain lions.
Like a pack of mountain lions just there to fuck shit up.
That's a wild idea for a movie.
I mean, shit, they made Cocaine Bear. Anything's possible.
They did make Cocaine Bear. This segment has obviously been sponsored by Xi Jinping and the Meg 2, coming to theaters soon, I think. I don't remember. But today, we will not be talking about shark movies, as fun as that would be. We're going to be talking the Fast and the Furious movies, because Fast 10 just came out. And some of you saw it because it didn't really do great, including Cory. We're also going to be talking new comics from Marvel, Image, and Panel Syndicate. And of course... we will be talking about the newest Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Across the Universe. Spoilers.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. Sorry, what did I say?
You got to make sure.
Sorry. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's my bad.
Is it lampshading when they called themselves out on it?
Movie's so good, I don't give a shit.
That's fair.
Don't forget, of course, follow us at Next Time On Pod on your social media platforms. We are all over the place. You can also follow us at nexttimeon.net, where you'll find all of our archived podcasts, all of our writing, all that good stuff. And last but not least, if you are on the YouTube channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're not on the YouTube channel, just scroll down to the description of this podcast. Listen to it right there. There'll be a link. You can go over there and check us out. You can see our beautiful faces, our insane reactions to each other, and my... borderline problematic whiskey collection behind me, and that's not even half of it.
It's cool. I got wholesome books and bobbleheads behind me, so it's much better.
I forgot to do a little bit of we got so distracted talking about Fast and Furious in the preamble. I forgot to do some admin. So there will probably be a janky cut right here where I ask Cory what his elevator pitch is and put it into the slide. But we'll see how that works out in the edit. I'm going to put a minute on the clock, and Cory is going to pitch his elevator pitch. And whenever I'm ready, go.
So what I am pitching, and a little bit of a preamble before that, is I'm studying for the GRE. So I've been limiting myself on what I actually can watch and enjoy as a human being in order to throw myself into the prospects of going to grad school. What I did let myself do was buy a book by one of my favorite authors, Chuck Klosterman, his newer book called The 90s. If you're not familiar with him, he put out a really, really fun, it's like a collection of essays detailing a lot of pop culture from the early 2000s, called Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. And what this is, it's a bit more serious, I want to say, for him. I'm only about four essays in for it. But it's chronicling basically what it was like to be in that Generation X age of the 90s, which is something that Shay and I both grew up in, but we were kids during it. And it's a very interesting way to ingest it from the viewpoint of someone who was in their early 20s during that. It talks about between the war, music, television. Honestly, so far, it's been a very fascinating book that I'm sure that anybody of any age could actually enjoy, but I really recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun reading it. It feels very different than Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs, so. Less funny, but it's still funny, but, you know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Klosterman's. I've really only read his short form stuff. I've read a few essays of his. Obviously, hasn't been so recently, but it was like a big recurring guest on the Bill Simmons podcast.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. He hasn't been on in a while. I don't think there's been like a falling out.
I feel like I've only read his writing. I've never actually actually heard him like speak or like as a podcast guy. But I was just kind of going through a bookstore. I'm like, oh, I've kept it on my Goodreads list for a while. I've been meaning to kind of get around to reading it because I was really just like Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs because it made me feel smart for a college kid. And this is making me feel smart as an adult now because I now actually understand what the Mandela effect is, or actually understand where the original saying came from.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
It's Chris Rock's fault.
It's Chris Rock's fault. Check out The 90s. It's a really good book. Not too deep into it so far, but I really recommend it if you're looking for like a collection of good essays. I want to say I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I haven't read that in particular, but I do love Klosterman stuff. I'll have to.
It's really fun to put it into a bubble though, kind of being like this is what basically before. I'm joking. I'm mostly joking when I'm saying like the end of the world with the introduction of the internet and everyone became way too connected with everything.
Yeah.
And it's at that pre-time where things were just kind of lost if you didn't see it around the first time. But yeah, no, I recommend it. Shay, what you got?
So I am pitching sort of a cheat, but it's also sort of a concept. I'm pitching good theatrical comedies, which feel like they've been dying over the last few years.
We do talk about that a lot.
Yeah, for a number of reasons. But there are two, I think, excellent comedies in theaters right now. Not the one with Bert Kreischer in it. The first one is Matthew Johnson's Blackberry, starring Glenn Howerton and Jay Baruchel, about the BlackBerry, the phone, and it's like the rise and fall of this company, and it's just really fun and funny, and also really informative about this thing that was like at least for us in our childhood, this massive thing that I honestly will just like forget existed. It's so dead and gone to the world, which is crazy. And the other movie that's also excellent is the Julia Louis-Dreyfus vehicle, directed by Nicole Hofstetter, who You Hurt My Feelings. That is like I'm not like a Woody Allen fan, never have been, even before he became extremely problematic. But this is like the version of Woody Allen films that I would really love. It's like angsty New York adult relationship stuff that is just really interesting and funny. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like fantastic in it. So just pitching two really fun, good movies for you guys to go check out.
I saw the poster for You Hurt My Feelings, and I've been meaning to get to Blackberry. I think I just went to video on demand, so I'm sure I'm going to be watching that very soon. I usually try to avoid trailers, but I decided to watch the Blackberry one just out of curiosity to see what kind of movie it even was going to be.
It's real Adam McKay vibes, which is fine. Like Matthew Johnson's clearly cribbing from some of his peers that I really.
It's like Adam McKay. I mean, like even Ben Affleck definitely copied that style a bit too with Air as well.
Yeah. There's a couple times that the camera in the movie gets too like we're in a documentary jittery shit, which I'm like, you don't need to do this, but like it's just so well acted and well written that.
Yeah, I think it's like coasting off that because I mean the budget for that was like super small. Right?
Yeah. These are both. these are both like, I say like mid-tier comedies mostly because mid-tier movies are just dead in general. They don't really make movies for 10 to 50 million or 10 to like $30 million. Everything is either under 10 or over 100. But that movie was like $5 million. And I haven't actually seen any of his other work, Matthew Johnson. I will have to check out some of his other stuff. He also stars in this movie as well as one of the friends. But he is, it's really funny. I will say this, for a movie that is really funny and got a lot of comedy like actors in it, one of my favorite final shots in a film ever. I will not spoil it because I do think you should go see it, but just be on the lookout. The final shot of this movie is good shit by our guy Johnson there. But let's jump into it because we got a jam-packed episode, and we're starting with Cory. I don't. What do we call this section? Cory explains the Fast and Furious franchise.
Sure, why not? Let's go with that.
I have seen. I was trying to remember for sure because Cory asked me which ones I've seen. I've definitely seen 1, 2, and 3, and I've almost certainly seen. I've definitely seen 5.
I think 5 is the best one,
and 7 we decided is the one that is the Paul Walker's final film.
Yes.
So I've for sure seen 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, and I think I've seen one other one, but I can't really remember. Now Cory is going to explain the Fast and Furious franchise to me, and I guess to our listeners out there.
Yeah, I was let's just kind of take everyone on a journey, just in case people forgot. For all the stuff. I mean, the common thing is like, yes, it's basically, the first one's basically Point Break. You have Paul Walker.
Basically is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The first one is Point Break, but the
first one is Point Break with fast cars. Paul Walker and Vin Diesel have the longest heterosexual sexual tension I've ever seen on film.
Not to spoil the end of this conversation, but is the Fast and Furious franchise better if Vin Diesel and Paul Walker fuck in the first movie?
I think it makes a lot more things make sense, including why Vin Diesel named his son after his best friend.
Yeah.
We're getting
That's a thing people do, right?
We're getting to that though. So yeah, first movie, Point Break, whatever. Vin Diesel decides to leave the franchise after asking for too much money, and then we go to Too Fast, Too Furious, where we introduce Tyrese and Paul Walker in another pretty grounded, for how ridiculous it is, grounded movie.
Yeah, everything is honestly relative at this point.
Relative. The two big things out of this movie that are like, whoa, this is crazy, is one, they had an ejectocito, and 2, they take a car and they jump it onto a boat. Those two things seem tame in relation to how these films keep going.
Yes.
So I'm not going to go to the third movie yet because we're going to stick on the timeline for how these movies actually work out. So we're hopping to Fast and Furious, where Vin Diesel was like, oh, I like money again, and came back to the franchise to make a pretty, okay movie. I'm not really going to mention what happens in the movie because ultimately it does not matter, because the whole point of it is them avenging Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez's character, but she ends up getting better later on.
Well, you did skip over our boy's cameo in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. One of the first ever Curse of the Rewatches.
No. I'm saying we're getting there.
Sorry,
everything has to make sense in timeline's sake.
Everything has to make sense is not something anyone's ever said about Fast and Furious. But
all right, so Fast 5 then. Okay, now we're in Brazil. They rob a bank. We pretty much bring all the team back together. We introduce The Rock and Vin Diesel's lover. It's just weird for him because he never has any sexual chemistry with anybody. And he doesn't, well, besides Paul Walker, he doesn't have any chemistry with anybody in these movies.
Vin Diesel's got real Robert De Niro vibes. Literally in only the fact that neither of them have sex in any of their movies.
No, never.
And that is the only thing that Vin Diesel and Robert De Niro have in
common. But yeah, in Fast 5, they rob a Brazilian mafia guy. I can't fucking remember. But they rob a guy by drifting a bank vault throughout the streets of Rio de Janeiro. And through shenanigans, they end up getting away with a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
But since we're staying in timeline-wise...
shenanigans in that The Rock is the worst cop ever.
Yes. But in this Fast 5 movie that we later learn on, because this movie series does this a lot, is that other characters were actually there during pinnacle points. We later on learn that Jason Momoa's character is now Brazilian, and he is the son of the villain for Fast 5.
Hold on.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
So Jason Momoa's character is the son of the bad guy from Fast Five.
That's not that part I don't really care about. Yeah. How could Jason Momoa is Brazilian?
He's Brazilian.
Has anyone ever seen a Brazilian person?
No, apparently not. As we continue though. So Fast Five happens, and I think honestly that's where this series was like, this is like fun, but then it started getting much stupider.
Yeah.
Fast Six rolls around. We kind of don't really have a plot anymore. I mean, they did the bait heist, they're now like rich as shit. There's really not much left to do.
Yeah.
But we have to but yes, now that they're all new grace, I think they're still criminals and shit like that though, but they're like kind of living all over the place. You know, the rules don't really apply to them, even though they should be very wanted people.
Right.
But of course they get drawn into things because shenanigans. And because I don't feel like explaining the plot for the sixth movie because it's like kind of unfortunate. We get introduced to a character named Shaw, who's Jason Statham's brother, and it's really not that important.
Hold on. Co-lead of Hobbs and Shaw.
No, we're not there yet. No, This is the first Shaw, the younger brother, and in this movie.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
In this, okay, there's two plot points in this movie. One, Letty isn't actually dead. This is beginning a trend of these series where characters aren't actually dead.
Where people aren't really dead.
And then two, at the end of the movie, Gal Gadot's character, who's introduced in the fifth one, falls out of a plane onto a tarmac.
Yeah.
And is dead.
Well.
But yeah, so that happens. Dom's baby mama that he met in Fast Five. Oh, she's not the baby mama yet. Dom's lover is also like, I'm out. Your Letty's back. I guess I'm just gonna leave your life now and just.
She's the other really bad cop, right?
She's also a horrible cop because she's just a really bad cop.
This series is basically just bad criminals and bad cops.
But this movie now ends. Fast Six is now when we tie the plot lines back together and we go back to Fast 3, Tokyo Drift. We go back to Fast and Furious 3, Tokyo Drift. Yeah. And Tokyo Drift is not an important movie because it doesn't really match the back at the end of the plot line. We introduced the most country man on earth, who was a horrible actor.
It's honestly one of the worst accents ever in films, and it's his real accent.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's. I thought he was doing a bit, and then later on seeing him in something else. This is just that guy's.
So Lucas Black is the person we were talking about. I would say go back and check out our Curse of the Rewatch for Tokyo Drift, in which we lose our mind talking about this movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything really positive to say about Lucas Black.
No, nothing positive. I mean, also, nothing really is important in this movie. If anything, it introduces him, and also it introduces Little Baba's character. We'll come back to him later on.
Wait, we will?
But in that movie, Han, who is a friend of Vin Diesel's and has been in 5 and 6, dies in a car accident. But, actually maybe not. But that's not the point. The point is that Jason Statham's character, also named Shaw, has committed revenge on Vin Diesel by murdering Han in Tokyo. So that's a whole new added scene onto it, thus leading into Vin Diesel now being at the end of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift to tie into that.
Are you with me, Chad? On any of this?
Are you with me, Chad?
No, of course not. of course not. And honestly, the more words you say, the more offended I am that these movies exist.
Okay, so back into the present time now. So as I mentioned before, I'm just gonna call him Jason Statham because fuck it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jason Statham just starts kind of committing basic like terrorist acts and whatever, and like
he is. That's right. He is just like a terrorist in the movie.
He breaks into a hospital, basically blows it up. I think he kills Han, and then he goes to then more shenanigans happens, and involving in the Fast 7 movie, Furious 7. I apologize. A major plot point about this is they're basically trying to stop a Big Brother satellite for coming online, being able to find any human in existence on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. This is also
the Dark Knight, but okay.
Like the plot, no, literally the plot of the Dark Knight. Yes,
plot of the Dark Knight.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Giselle's not dead yet. Is she dead? Oh no, she dies in this one.
Also, it's not Giselle, by the way, but you keep going. That doesn't matter either.
Oh, I'm sorry. They mourn Han and Giselle. Got it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. No. Her like character's name is Giselle.
No, it's not.
I'm looking at it right here.
Can't be a real thing. They named
Gisele.
the supermodel actress Giselle.
What? Yeah, that's what it says. What do you want from me?
I want them to have even like 1.5 degrees of creativity. They named the supermodel actress's character Giselle. That can't be real. Yeah.
And but also, by the way, the actress who let me look up her name real quick, who's also in Game of Thrones.
Also in Game. Natalie
Emanuel. Yeah. She plays Ramsey, a hacker who created God's Eye. So let me look. Hold on, real quick, everybody. Let's be all like Ramsey, God Eye. Let's just kind of give them a little bit of credit, Fast Furious 7, for this clever fucking bullshit.
Why? Because they read the synopsis of one mythology book.
But yeah, basically that, and then like they get into a fight. Vin Diesel somehow gains superpowers at the end of the movie. He breaks a parking garage by stamping on it, beating Jason Statham in a fight.
It is one of the. I understand what they thought that scene was supposed to look like. That like it's like teetering on the edge, and then he just stamps, and it looks like he becomes an earthbender.
No. It's like it's insane. Like it's supposed to be a kind of like, but like this is
that's also the movie where The Rock heals his broken arm by flexing
out of it. Yes,
insane cinema. Man.
But also that movie is also introduction of another sexual chemistry that is actually able to be fleshed out in another movie between Jason Statham and The Rock. We're not touching on Hobbs and Shaw. That's a movie that happened. We don't really need to talk about it. It has nothing to do.
I love Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw is the only fun thing that happens after Fast. And I think the problem with it is Furious 7 is the last good one. Because at the end of Furious 7, this is also when, unfortunately, Paul Walker passed away during the filming of this movie. Yeah. And he wasn't able to complete it. But at the end of the movie, they had the very well done send off to a dead, like an
absolutely should have been the end of these films. Would have been a beautiful way to send off, but I do understand. Obviously, it has gone way over the deep end, jumped a million sharks. I understand why Vin Diesel, after losing his friend, would have been like, in his memory, we should make more movies. Even 8, I'm like, okay, I get it. We're gonna go to 12.
We're gonna go to 12. Technically 13 if you do consider Hobbs and Shaw as well. But yeah, like an actual surprising note, but they actually let Brian's character, Paul Walker, be happy and go off into like literally ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. And we obviously joke about it is preposterous that like Han and terribly named Giselle come back to life in these movies. But it is clearly something about Vin Diesel that he's like, he's like terrified of death now, which I get. He lost his friend and he just wants everything, all his family to be back all the time. In a way, it's beautiful. And in another way, it is a series of unhinged, terrible films. And in that way, that is more what we're focusing on today is the fact that these movies are now about cars in space, I guess. We haven't gotten there.
We're not there just yet. So now we're at Fate of the Furious 8, Fast 8, whatever.
Honestly, I will say this. A great pun name.
I think that's the only...
Fate of the Furious is good.
I think that's my also another problem with these movies is like, that's the last one with like, and it's going to go back and forth now where it's just like Fast and Furious and Fast and Furious 6 and then Fast 5, Furious 7, F9 is just the name of the 9th one. They just didn't even give a fuck with that one.
Well, there's a movie called Fast and Furious and there's another one called The Fast and the Furious.
The first one
different?
Is... The Fast and the Furious
is the first one.
Okay. Fast and Furious is the 4th one.
So stupid. Stupid.
Too Fast, Too Furious, though.
Too Fast and Furious is great.
That's funny, though. That one's funny.
Great. No, that is.
All right, well, Fate of the Furious is actually... So this is when the movies are, like, completely stupid now. I think like, straight up what you said, though, I think Paul Walker leaving the series... kind of like made them lose a little bit of the sanity they had left.
I think it very clearly unmoors what the like ethos of this series was. Now, I will never pretend to have been a fan of the Fast and Furious movies in general, but it is clear that like the thing that fans connected to about these movies is the familial relationship between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker and everyone, like the hangers on really.
And honestly, man, they do not let you forget about family, honestly. I think after a while in the 10th one, they're just doing it on purpose because it's just like everyone's just saying it over and over and over again.
Well, like all of these things, they just be like David Hasselhoff, like SNL. They just become spoofs of themselves after a while. You lose your sense of reality, and you become a joke of your own joke, and a hat on a hat on a hat. So,
but I gotta say, I think even the writers of these movies realize that Furious 7 should have been the final one. Like, everyone gets their happy ending. Everyone's allowed to go be happy. So they just had to introduce the most insane thing they could. And the smart thing they actually did, though, was bring Charlize Theron and made her a cyber terrorist.
I honestly don't care. Charlize is in the movie.
No, it actually, thank God she's in the movie because she's actually having fun. But basically, for some reason, she's a cyber terrorist and she needs someone she needs like a really capable person to do things for her. And not finding the many mercenaries that I'm sure existing in the world, she decides to target Dominic Toretto, a streetcar racer originally from California, who through shenanigans has been a bank robber and basically
started these movies like stealing VHSs.
Yes, that was the big plot point of the first one.
VCRs, not VHSs, VCRs.
But basically, what Charlize Theron's character Cypher, because she's a cyber criminal, kidnaps the woman from Fast Five who actually ended up birthing a child with Vin Diesel. So that's a whole
There's no way
thing.
They've had sex.
They had no way they had sex. But yeah,
that's someone else's baby.
But basically what this movie does is put Vin Diesel as the antagonist against the main crew. And you know what? It actually really worked. Because Vin Diesel didn't have to interact with anybody, and the main crew just had fun. And I think that's when the movie started realizing that's how these should work.
I think this is the other one that I have seen. I don't remember really. There's a scene where he gets like his car harpooned 1,000 different ways or something.
Yeah,
I think I've seen this one.
Yeah. In a weird way, this one's actually kind of fun though. It's stupid as shit, but it's kind of fun though. Because the team themselves is really introduced and are really fun to play with. Jason Statham is now on the good guys team for him and The Rock to play off each other. Don't ask why. And then so then they kind of do this, but bunch of the shenanigans happens as they keep on actually harkening back to the God's Eye plot point. That's something that they weirdly kind of keep going back to. It's even a plot point in the 10th one. It's like this, they introduce this whole insane Big Brother thing, and they're like, oh, actually, this is kind of an important thing that for the science fiction aspect of things. Why can't I just use the word science fiction aspect in a Fast and Furious movie? Basically, whatever. Dom steals a nuclear football from the Russian Ministry of Defense.
What?
There's magnets involved.
What are you talking about? Go back to what you just said. What are you talking about?
So Dom is working for Cypher, and she's using him to steal a nuclear football so they can get to a nuclear sub so they can start a nuclear war. And this kind of ends up with them being. I
haven't seen this movie.
the Antarctic. There's a submarine they had to stop. The Rock moves a torpedo that's skirting across the ice into another car. Charlize Theron shoots Vin Diesel's baby mama in the head. What? That was actually a very out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, she's definitely not coming.
And she's dead?
She got shot in the head. I'm like, I mean, if they bring her back from that's actually super surprising.
She's just hanging out with Chris Hemsworth, so she's having a good time.
Is she?
I mean, it's his wife, so I hope so.
Is that his wife?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So she got this franchise. Good for her. But yeah, blah, blah, blah happens. They save the kid from Cypher. Deckard, Jason Statham brings the kid back to Dom, putting aside the difference, and they all have a barbecue together. And also he also names his son Brian. As you also notice, I really have stopped mentioning most of the cats' kind of importance to it because they're really not. It's kind of just the rest of the cast is comedic relief. The Rock does something sometimes. Right. Jason Statham does something sometimes. But pretty much everyone else is kind of just there. They introduce new characters. Kurt Russell, I didn't even mention him. Mr. Nobody is just apparently a CIA spook who's also friends with Dom for some reason.
I remember because he's also in Hobbs and Shaw, right?
He is also in Hobbs and Shaw, I believe.
He's the connective tissue.
But too bad he's no longer in the movie, so. So in F9, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. It turns out, in the most preposterous thing that's happened yet, Dominic Toretto has a brother who's John Cena. Dominic Toretto ambiguously raised Dominic Toretto with his Cuban sister, has a brother who's John Cena.
But like, Michelle Rodriguez is his sister, right?
No, Michelle Rodriguez is his wife. His sister, I can't remember.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. But like, I mean,
Brewster.
Yes, yeah. But like she's like Latino. So yeah, that's stupid. John Cena's really mad at Dom for reasons, whatever, and is pretty much on like the quest to murder him, more or less. There's really not a lot that happens. I mean, Han comes back to life because of reasons.
Because he's the only good part of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
And also, I think
he comes back to life.
Yeah, Han's awesome. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, Han is
awesome.
The best character in these movies. It's unquestionable.
He's the only one fun. He's the only one having fun. I could just they should have just focused on him.
Which is why it's so incredibly weird that he hasn't really had a career outside of.
Yeah, he's so charismatic too. Even in like the newest ones where he kind of just doesn't do anything except stand around and eat things, and it's just like, why are you so entertaining? He's also the only other character besides Dominic Toretto and Brian who has his own Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I mean, people fucking loved Han, which is why he came back. Which I get. These movies are just clearly about crowd pleasing at this point. It tracks. I'm currently looking up Sung Kang. I think it's Sung Kang or Sung Kang.
That sounds right.
I'm looking at his IMDb to see if he makes if he was doing like a run of Korean movies in the downtime between Fast and Furious, but it doesn't really look like it. I think he just wasn't really working on anything major. He had. Which is weird because I just think he's like one of the more charismatic performers in this franchise, and until he was brought back in the fold in Fast 9, was just sort of out in the wilderness. Which is sad.
I'm assuming him and Justin Wan are friends because I think the character originally is from a Justin Wan short film, and that was like kind of like why he was end up being in Tokyo Drift in the first place, playing that same character. Mm-hmm. That's the reason he came back in Fast 5 and 6 and. Part of 7. But yeah, so they're trying to do something in Fast 9, I think, and the team has to try to stop them from doing something. Cypher's back with John Cena is in tow as a henchman. It involves this is the one where I thought they were gonna do this in Fast 10. But this is the one where Little Bow Wow, told you remember him, and Jacob Black are back in the movie now, and they help Tyrese and Ludacris make a car into a spaceship, and they shoot it into space.
Hold on.
And yes,
you're telling me Mushmouth is back to do rocket science?
They're rocket scientists now.
Lil Bow Wow in Tokyo Drift sells iPods.
Yes. So I think.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why are you saying the things you're saying? What do you mean this motherfucker who got expelled from high school as a 40-year-old man and shipped over to Tokyo and a kid who sells iPods are here to make a rocket ship? Yeah,
they had to stop and upload into space. So they need a rocket car, I apologize, to go into space to stop the upload.
There simply has to be somebody better for this job than Dominic and his friends.
They make it all the way to the ISS, but they safely return to Earth.
Why do you keep saying these things?
The team celebrates their success with a barbecue at Dom's house. How many times does that happen?
If these niggas don't stop having fucking barbecues with Corona after they save the world, I'm gonna lose my mind.
All right, that's the end of Fast 9. All right, Fast 10, and where the fuck can we go from here? All right, so back to Fast 5 when we the bad guys reveal that Jason Momoa is actually his son.
I'm sorry, I just can't get over the fact that Lil Bow Wow all he does is sell iPods in Tokyo Drift. Why did they make him a rocket scientist?
Okay, yeah, shut up. All right, so as I mentioned beforehand, Jason Momoa is the son of the bad guy from Fast 5.
Of course.
His character's name is Dante Reyes because Dante that's a bad guy's name. But basically, after he was on the bridge in a Fast 5 and gets exploded into the water. I think the insinuation is that he has brain damage, which makes him crazier than he actually is meant to be. But what he's gonna do, he's basically playing a queer-coded villain who's just having a honest-to-God blast in this movie. And the only saving grace for how stupid and bad Fast X is Jason Momoa's performance.
Well, Vin Diesel disagrees with you.
Well, yeah, whatever. But basically, like, as this movie doesn't have much of a plot anymore, and like, you know, it's just, but basically at this point, he's just like, I'm just gonna ruin Dom Toretto's life. Mm-hmm. We're finally out of that point where we just don't have a plot anymore. He just has a guy who's pissed off at him. This involves Dante taking out Cypher, Charlize Theron, with her getting her to land in an Antarctic black site prison. Sorry, I had to fucking catch myself for that too. So she's in an Antarctic black site prison. After because she goes to Dom's house to like warn him about him for some reason, even though she killed Dom's baby mama. Why? And like he doesn't just straight up. He doesn't straight up just
stop being a villain.
She still is a villain, but like Dante shows up, kidnaps all of her goons' children, and it's like, you should go kill her or I'll kill your kids. Also, this is the first time the series has had a competent villain who's just kind of an asshole through and through. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he kidnaps some kids, makes them turn on Cypher. Cypher somehow she's also somehow John Wick in this movie. She somehow fights off.
Well, you say somehow. It's because Charlie's probably like, hey, you guys know I was training for the old guard. And they were like, oh, we'll use that in this movie.
Yeah, we'll use that. Atomic Blonde, absolutely. And her scene's actually pretty fun. But she takes out like an army of like goons and then like basically escapes to Dom's house to warn him about him and is arrested by the government because she's a wanted terrorist. And then, but this is besides the pack. Basically, the rest of the team, besides Dominic and Michelle Rodriguez, have been sent to Rome to stop a transfer, some bullshit, whatever. They were sent to Rome to stop a mission because they still work for the government for some fucking reason. But in turn, it actually is a plot by Jason Momoa to lure them to Rome in order to blow them up. Shenanigans happen, and there's a gigantic rolling bomb, which is headed towards the Vatican, which Vin Diesel stops with a car. But even though doing all of this, the entire team is once again now wanted criminals because of their terrorist attack on Rome. You with me still?
Cory, I have
all right. Most of the team is now like left to go try to figure out what the fuck to do in the other parts of Europe. Michelle Rodriguez is like arrested in Rome for being a terrorist and is also sent to the Black Site Antarctic prison. And Dom gets away and meets up with I can't even remember her fucking name. Dame Helen Mirren. I'm giving myself a fucking headache. One of
the finest actors of our time, by the way.
Absolutely. Speaking of Oscar winners, Brie Larson's there.
I forgot she's in this fucking movie.
Brie Larson's there playing Kurt Russell, aka Mr. Nobody's daughter. She's in the camp of being like, for the government, being like, they're actually good guys.
You know what I was about to say, actually, and I caught myself. I was about to say, why is everyone in this fucking movie related to each other? And then I realized we're about to talk about a Spider-Man movie in a second. That's really good. Yeah. So I can't even give Fast and Furious shit for this, but it's ridiculous. She could just be somebody else. Sorry.
We could just be. But yeah, so Mr. Nobody's daughter, I'm just gonna call her Miss Nobody because I'm lazy. It's basically fighting against like Alan Ritchson, aka Jack Reacher. Is also now like the big bad Nick Fury for the government. Also, like the government has now become like the CIA is now just S.H.I.E.L.D. and like the whole like floating screens and everything, and him like talking to like a bunch of blank faces. Like it's just that scene from Avengers. He's just Nick Fury, but it's stupider. Yeah. And also, one of the more lazy things from this series is that in talking about their previous accomplishments and giving the audience kind of a rundown of like, how the fuck did we get here after 10 movies? They just show scenes from old movies. Not reshots. Nothing different. They just have angles for things that could not possibly have cameras there. They're just showing footage of impossible things to have shown. And I know that shouldn't take me out of the movie, but like...
Well, no, I mean, it should.
But it's like... it's in reference to everything else that's fucking happening. But it's just like...
What if the twist at the end of Fast 12 is it's been a movie the whole time?
That would have honestly made it a lot better. But yeah, in like shenanigans, whatever, Dante tries to kidnap Dom's kid, who they refer to for the entire time
as a kid. These movies,
yeah, no, they do not. Also, the kid's now like 10 years old and black.
What?
The kid's black. Just a black kid.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, man. The kid's black. Vin Diesel plus Michelle Rodriguez equals a black child, apparently.
I'm not. Let's be very clear. I'm no DNA expert, but no. So that's what I have to say about that.
But yeah, so during this part, Vin Diesel's kid, who they call Little B the entire time for Little Brian, but they only refer to him as Little B. Like Little B the entire fucking time. To the point of stop fucking saying it. Stop fucking saying it after a while. Jason Momoa's character tries to kidnap him with a team of operatives, thus reminding the audience that Dom's brother is actually basically, I don't want to say terrorist anymore. He's like a mercenary, I guess.
But a mercenary terrorist.
But now he's a good guy. Yeah, whatever. But he goes to save Little B and to go meet up with Vin Diesel at some safe house, whatever. And involving this, he takes the kid to an airport where they sneak on, in the guise of a kayak, a low altitude plane that they use to drop out of the commercial flight and fly off into wherever they're going. You with me?
Stop asking me if I'm with you. Just you don't need to ask me anymore if I'm with you. The answer is categorically no. I have no idea what you're talking about anymore.
I guess let me just.
I honestly haven't got over the fact that Lucas Black and Lil Bow Wow built a rocket 2 movies ago. I've fully lost my mind.
I guess let's just focus on everyone's storyline. So the main crew, who's just like everybody who's not like Tyrese, Ludacris, that whole crew, is basically bouncing around.
Are the Brazilians back?
No, let me get there. I'm still going. I'm just gonna I realize I'm bouncing around so much. Let me just put everyone where they're going.
Yeah, let's
the whole crew is in London trying to figure out we don't have any money or whatever like that. Except for Tyrese, who's strapped hundreds of thousands of dollars to his body. It's stupid. It doesn't matter. They're like, where do we go in London to get money and weapons? Oh, Jason Statham. No, let's not go there first. For some reason, we're going to go do a Pete Davidson cameo where they just go to a computer place for 10 minutes for no fucking reason. Han eats a mushroom-laced cupcake, which never really comes back again. They just kind of have him trip out for 30 seconds. This movie's a hallucination. They get fucking swatted because they're in a computer cafe. It makes no fucking sense in the first place. And then they go to Jason Statham's. There's a Jason Statham fight scene. Then he just leaves the movie. He's in the movie for 5 minutes and he just leaves. It's really fucking weird. And then they disappear from the plot and then they end up on an airplane where I'll cover where they are at the end. Michelle Rodriguez, now arrested from being a part of the Vatican's terroristic bombing, is now in the Antarctic black site where Brie Larson's character goes to let her know that Dom's okay or whatever, blah, blah, blah. For really no fucking reason, but she helps her. She stabs her. She stabs Michelle Rodriguez in the guise of bringing her to the hospital room at this prison, where for some reason they keep the prisoners next to each other in this hospital room, which has lasers and looks like kind of at the set from Andor when they're in the prison. I think they just kind of copied that set. It's a really weird futuristic sci-fi vibe, but I was like, it makes perfect sense to me. And they're like, they put her next to Charlize Theron. The two break out, but then of course, which in sense it makes out before they break out, Michelle Rodriguez's character fights Charlize Theron's character for 5-10 minutes. It lasts for a long ass time. She escapes, but learns that she's in Antarctica and can't survive in Antarctica because it's Antarctica. Goes back down, meets up with Charlize Theron, and the both of them leave. And honestly, one of the more preposterous things about this movie is that at the very end of the movie, Michelle Rodriguez's character and Charlize Theron's character are going to some point that Charlize Theron knows about. In this point, middle of nowhere Antarctica, a submarine from the Fate of the Furious movie, a nuclear submarine from Russia, pops out of the ice, and for some reason, Giselle Gal Gadot comes out of the fucking submarine. That's supposed to be treated like a very okay, so she's alive. Oh fuck, this movie sucked. All right, what happened to Dom? All right, Dom's still doing this thing. He's trying to go meet up with his kid in, I think they're in Costa Rica or whatever. Fuck, there's Brazilians there. They do a race. It doesn't fucking matter, okay? That scene does not.
They do drive cars in this movie, though.
They do. There's a street race. There is one race. A guy dies. The girl who plays Ratcatcher 2 from Suicide Squad's there. And it's like kind of just fucking. It's just stupid, and like it's pointless and fucking stupid. Yeah, and so and Dom goes to meet up with John Cena's character and his son, and the two meet up and they're driving away. John Cena somehow has a car that can shoot rockets, with Little B, and Dom's there as well, and Dante Jason Momoa is in tow chasing after them. Yeah. In the stupidest thing possible, one of the rockets gets jammed, and the dumbass little child gets out of the car and gets into the backseat of this El Camino rocket car to fix the rockets. Jason Momoa's character sees him and it's like, you can't be serious right now. And the same thing I was thinking as well, goes, picks up the child and kidnaps him and drives away. And honestly, I can't remember how this happens, but somehow Vin Diesel gets the kid back again. I don't fucking know.
I just don't understand why there's a kid in this movie.
It's fucking stupid. They're like, I think it's just to give it agents. I don't fucking know. Basically, a bunch of shit happens. Everyone's in their own separate place at this point, and the movie ends and they're at some dam at the very end. Vin Diesel's at a dam, and Jason Momoa has like a bomb set up, and the car is in between two remote-controlled gas tankers, and the cars are driving at Vin Diesel, who's in the middle, and of course what he does is shoots the car off of the dam, which should kill him, and like just drives down it as it explodes in the water. Is cusping behind them, another explosion happens, and then Vin Diesel takes the car door off of his car and uses it like Captain America's shield to shield him and his child away from the explosion, and the movie cuts to black.
That's the end of the movie?
No, in the mid-credit scene, The Rock shows up.
These movies are fucking unhinged, dog. How are they going to make 2 more of them?
Like, I think they're really going to try to pull off an Avengers Assemble moment in these movies. And I think what he really wanted out of these movies, and I find it very funny, there's 2 movies that we're talking about today, who both are part 1s of 2.
Yeah.
And
well, this one's part 1 of 3, right?
No, it's part 1 of 2. And there was a Luke Hobbs movie, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, okay.
And it's just like looking at these 2 films.
Also, Luke Hobbs, another truly horrendous character name. I'm sorry.
It's a horrible name. No, yeah.
Wow, I really feel like I've been through an ordeal listening to all of that. And there are people who
enjoy these,
go to the movies voluntarily to see these films.
Oh, I was entertained.
How could you be entertained by this?
By the stupidity. It's honestly at this point, like the continuous stupidity of each character is astounding. Brie Larson's character, Miss Nobody, co-ops. Remember that God's Eye thing, which is basically the Big Brother thing that could track down anybody on the planet? It is probably the most dangerous device that ever existed in the realm of humanity. Mm. She carries it on her person, and then she gets shot, and then Jason Momoa just takes it out of her pocket. Then they even say earlier, like, maybe you shouldn't have that on you, and she's like, it's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do think there is...
This movie relies on characters just being insanely stupid.
Right, yeah.
That's not what you should do with them. As a storytelling device, you cannot rely on characters just making stupid-ass decisions over and over and over again. It's kind of crazy for them to even who have done this for so long.
I mean, these movies have made, I'm looking right now, a whopping $7.8 billion, which puts them above such franchises as Sesame Street, the entire DC Extended Universe, all of the X-Men movies, Halo as a game and film and book franchise. It does, however, put it behind Ben 10, incredibly, which has made $7.85 billion. Don't ask me.
Whoa.
But these movies are incredibly popular, and Fast X has...
Also, good for you. Good for Ben 10, honestly.
Just weird. Just very strange.
Weird. Must be money. Must be, toys.
Yeah. This movie has, quote-unquote, bombed at the box office, but it made $600 million, which is almost as much as Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So they will make more of them, and people will go see them, and I will continue to be perplexed at just don't understand. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about these insane movies? I mean, we've gone like, do you know what the runtime is currently?
I saw. I think I straight up gave myself a headache. I think just that talking, and then like it's like talking and trying to like remember it. Then also I'm like, did I make that up? And then double checking myself.
It's not like there are obviously.
I left things out though, Jay. I left out things. That's a thing. It's like
the problem is that there's just simply no cohesion, and it does feel like these movies have become a Mad Libs of how to form a movie. We're just people in a room being like, who's a character that we like that we can throw in this random scene and this random thing, like the Han mushroom brownie scene.
Yeah.
It's just some writer was like, it'd be funny to have in our movie a scene where some character takes drugs. Which character could we make do that? Han. And then
yeah.
And then they don't really contend with like how that piece of will fit into the rest of the narrative. And now they're in space shooting satellites down. It's just.
And I hate it because I was like, someone was like, I wanted to make this movie more grounded than the last one. I'm like, you did not make it more grounded, sir.
Who said that?
I think the director did.
I will say
they didn't go to space again, so I guess technically they was more grounded.
Honestly, my brain is entirely fried. Should we go to a break and then we will?
Yeah, I need some water.
Clearly, have to cut some stuff, and we'll come back and figure out what the fuck the rest of this episode is going to be about. Yeah. Say yes, Cory.
Yes. Okay.
My name is Peter B. Parker. I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and for the last 22 years, I thought I was the one and only Spider-Man. What a day. I'm pretty sure you know the rest. You see, I saved the city, fell in love, I got married, saved the city some more, maybe too much. My marriage got testy, made some dicey money choices, don't invest in a spider-themed restaurant. Then like 15 years passed, blah, 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 super burn. I broke my back, a drone flew into my face. I buried Aunt May, my wife and I split up. But I handled it like a champion. Because you know what? No matter how many times I get hit, I always get back up. And I got a lot of time to reflect and work on myself. Did you know that seahorses, that they mate for life? Could you imagine a seahorse seeing another seahorse and then making it work? She wanted kids and it scared me. I'm pretty sure I broke her heart. Flash forward, I'm in my apartment doing push-ups, doing ab crunches, getting strong. When this weird thing happened, and I gotta say, weird things happen to me a lot, but this was real weird.
And we're back.
What's up?
All right, so obviously, for anyone who has checked the little scroll bar at the bottom of their Spotify podcast player, they will realize that we don't really have time to talk about the comics we were planning to talk about. We're going to jump straight to Across the Spider-Verse.
I would like to formally apologize.
No, just listen, that was great content. Don't apologize for great content. I do want to say we will be checking back in with World Tree, the James Tynion book that we were going to talk about for sure. Bad Karma that we were going to talk about, Wrapped. We both didn't really have like a ton of things to say about it. It's fun. Go buy it.
Check it out. Go check out Panel Syndicate. They have a lot of good comics. It's a solid run. I mean, like not a lot to say about it right now, but I think it's still like a good enough run. You guys looking for a good comic to read? I think you guys should check it out.
I think it starts stronger than it ends, but it's still fun. But now we're going to talk about something that starts strong and ends strong. Well, actually, no. Doesn't end.
Doesn't end.
Starts strong, and then we get to the middle.
Middle's really strong.
Middle's really strong. And then we'll talk about the ending in about a year's time. So,
I think that's exactly.
But that is Across the Spider-Verse. This is a spoiler-full conversation. If you haven't seen the movie, thank you for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
but come back after you've seen the podcast to hear us talk about it. Or sorry, come back after you've seen the movie to hear us talk about it. And if you have seen it, we're going to jump in. We're just going to talk about, I would say, I need to go back and revisit Homecoming. Because at the time, we talked about this at the time of release of Into the Spider-Verse, and then probably in the subsequent, every time there's a new Spider-Man movie, what's the best Spider-Man movie? Going into the theater on Thursday, I would have said Homecoming 1, Into the Spider-Verse 2, Far From Home, etc. I think this is better than Into the Spider-Verse, which I love. I don't know if I'm quite there with Homecoming yet, but I need to go back and rewatch it. Cory, you're on the record as saying Into the Spider-Verse is your favorite. You got it tattooed on your body.
I do have a tattoo on my body, which is always so strange to explain to people.
I think it's a sick tattoo.
Thank you. I agree. I got it onto my body.
It's one of my favorite shots of the movie. Obviously, this movie has a couple other pretty iconic shots. For those of you
who YouTube if you want to go.
Open, Cory showing the tattoo. Has this topped the list for you? I know we talked about we can't really grade it yet because it's not a full movie.
It's very true. But I think when I walked out of the theater, I was like very on the fence about it because I was so much in that same like, it's not done yet.
Yeah.
But the thing that I kind of kept going back to, or at least thinking about the next day, were those Gwen scenes. With the animation.
The opening? Or when she goes back to her.
Yeah, and I think that scene to me was the same amount of emotional feeling I got from Miles's what should I call it? Miles's like the montage realization of like leading to his like leap of faith scene.
Yeah.
And the artistic choices in the animation I feel like they made in this movie, I think it's better than the first one.
I think it is. The reason I'm putting it for right now above Into the Spider-Verse, and maybe to be adjusted if for some reason, which I would be shocked by, the second movie lets us down. I don't think that's on the table really. Lord and Miller have proved that they are pretty steady hands for this franchise, but I think visually this movie is superior to the Spider-Verse, which I didn't think would happen. I think these are probably 1 and 2 best looking animated movies ever.
I'm very as another person who has another animated movie tattooed on their body.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think this it's just like I don't catch my breath. I feel like watching movies a lot, especially shots, and the way that these movies do those shots, though, where they kind of like set it up and then they'll cut to something, and then you will be like, oh, holy shit, that's something that you kind of were slowly building up to. And what I'm referencing right now is when Miles and Gwen are having the conversation when they're like they end up sitting upside down on the building and just has a flipped view of New York from Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It was like, oh, holy fucking shit. Like, this is just like such a cool shot that like I didn't think about. And I remember the conversation I was having with my friend when I first saw the first one, where he was talking about like how like dialogue could be such a boring thing to shoot in a film. And when Miles and Peter first meet up with Jake Johnson's Peter first meet, and they're having the conversation about him being Spider-Man, and they're just like walking across buildings upside down. And they just do such a good job with like doing what are just like normal things, but using the animation to its fullest.
Yeah.
And like the idea that these characters can do all these amazing things with that like it just kind of makes all these like, you have all these, just like what would be a very strong character-driven story if you took out all the superhero parts. I don't know how you would do that, but you know what I'm saying. But like, but then like with the powers that each of these characters are in their animation styles, it just kind of makes it that much better.
I think it is, like you were saying, this is one of the first movies I've seen really ever that I think capitalizes on the fact that it's an animated movie to its fullest, where they do whatever they want visually. The scene that you touched on before, the scene with Gwen, when it's like it turns back to turns back, and it's not an actual camera, but either we cut back to the dad's reaction, and the whole lighting in the room has changed in a way that if it was a real, like a film that you were shooting with cameras, you could do by changing the lights or doing
but it would be
post-processing and everything, but it would look ridiculous. But because this is an animated movie, you get to sort of play with the medium in a way that I think this has been one of the more what's the word? Just like daring. They just make incredible choices that I really love.
Absolutely.
The one where it hit me, which was early in the movie, where I was like, these guys have a visual idea that, or a visual goal that is just far beyond any anime movie I've ever seen, is when we see the vulture from like a fucking like Renaissance sketch.
Yeah, like a Da Vinci sketch, basically. Yeah, it feels very like, and it's like, okay, this is just like an insane thing that's just currently happening.
And you can like place it over the world, and you get these like blocked characters out that make everything. Obviously, Spider-Punk is like the star of this film, really. And
so good. So
just visually is so sick. Like it just looks incredible.
And apparently it took 3 years just to do his animation by itself.
Fully worth it.
Honestly. And I mean, like, absolutely. And like all these movies are just very like, they took their times, they perfected it, they thought it through, they thought through the character moments, and they focused on the story. And they focused on the story so well, and then they added in this fucking stellar animation that it just kind of, and also like this very clear, and we didn't get into it, I'm probably not going to get into it, because there is a comic book Spider-Man conversation I would like to have in the future. But these people who genuinely love these characters and want like to get the most out of them, while like respecting the whole like original ethos of them. That's just like, it's just like kind of been, I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of like, I think in the first movie itself, like why I liked it so much, because it's kind of just struck so many chords in me. I mean, as somebody who loves animation, obviously as someone who's like Spider-Man, and just to see creators who can just have that and just propel themselves into making something like this, I just ended up. And talking about it more with you now, I'm like, yeah, I think this one did beat out Into the Spider-Verse now in my in my mind.
And I think this movie it's like you said, heartfelt, beautifully animated. It is character driven. I will say, I was hesitant at the beginning when they started to give us like the Gwen Stacy origin story again, and I was like, I don't need another origin story. I think they do it pretty well for what it's like, pretty quick in and out, and I do just love that intro and the action sequences. But what this movie is that I think is really underrated is like genuinely funny that a lot of superhero movies have just lost track of and have become like
quippy, but not funny.
Quippy, corny. I obviously I think back to like Ragnarok, which I think is the peak of Marvel humor, where Ragnarok is like genuinely really funny.
And it's like funny, but like it's not reactionary funny. It's like the jokes actually are set up, and not just like wrote the scene out, then I threw a joke in here. I mean, even though this scene did it too, like I feel like this is a metaphor for capitalism thing definitely was something that somebody later on added in. Yeah. But even a joke like that was like, it took me a second, so I couldn't fucking understand him half the time, but it was just like, I was like,
Daniel Kaluuya really like ramped up the Cockney, and
they made him full Cockney, and every line out of that man's mouth was fucking hilarious.
Men's from Camden, so you know.
It just the baby's an anarchist.
I really was that part of the film where the switch happens. Really, I mean, that is essentially the moment where the movie goes from being really electrifying action sequences and fun comedic character conversations to switching to the stakes have been ramped up. We are talking about like universally existential crisis, and would you be able to have the, I don't know, strength is not the right word, but would you be able to sacrifice somebody you love if you thought it was for the greater good? And this is not to bring it back to the Thor movies, but I do think they're like, because of how great Ragnarok is and how disappointing Thor Love and Thunder is, I was thinking about these a lot this week. But the thing that I really turned me off from Thor Love and Thunder and not Ragnarok is because it let with the things that were serious be serious. Yes. And the part of this movie that is like genuinely harrowing when Miles is standing in Spider-Man 2099's basically evil villain there. And
they made my boy Miguel full evil.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's trying to protect the entirety of existence, so I get
and
it.
Oscar Isaac is a very intimidating person. As someone who rewatched Ex Machina recently, that guy can turn it on immediately.
Wait, did you go see it at the Alamo?
No, my friend and I are writing a short film, and so we watched Ex Machina because it has a lot to do with it.
They just replayed it at my Alamo recently, so I also have seen it.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, fantastic. But yeah, I mean, that scene is like genuinely harrowing. It is about characters contending with things that obviously we can't really comprehend. But obviously, everyone in their life will have to go through a situation where you have to sacrifice something to for the benefit of others or for the benefit of yourself or whatever it may be. Obviously, no one will have to contend with, will they destroy the entirety of existence?
If you let your dad die.
If you let your dad die. But it's, yeah, it is a really beautiful moment that I didn't really think movies like this were capable of. And I find, as you guys know, I'm not like an animated movie person in general. But there's something really special about these, I think.
And as someone who is a huge animated movie person, there's something very special about this. Also, just another random note from my head. I don't think is it kind of weird that I've seen 2 movies that battle with the death of the universe that involves bagels. I'm not saying there is, but it is kind of strange that it's happened twice in the span of 2 years.
I would say the food star of this movie though is the beef patty. The beef patty in the bodega scene is so great.
It also does. Like, I love how New York it is actually though.
It's one of the most underrated New York. I mean,
that was like honestly after living in Brooklyn for the last fucking 5 years, it definitely felt like I think I've walked by the police station they reference and it's just like a lot of like it felt very like as communal as that. It kind of really is. The
rooftop party is straight out of the Bronx and Brooklyn.
I've been to the bank that they do the reverse scene on, maybe, but yeah, it's just like it just felt very it's just like so they do everything fucking right, and I just really wish I was like I don't have notes because, and I think my only note leaving it was like I wish there was an ending, but it's very clear that they probably had a script for one full movie, and then they probably got the go ahead to be like you don't have to cut this script down.
Now, so we should talk about that because it was in the theater. It was the person literally sitting right next to me. They were quite irritated by it.
I can understand that,
and I do think it is a genuine criticism. I'm not dismissing it. It is not something that's ever bothered me. Mm-hmm. I remember my sister was incredibly annoyed by the Two Towers. I think the second Lord of the Rings movie, or maybe even Fellowship of the Rings or something. One of them ends with them like walking over a hill and is basically like essentially to be continued. Like the movie doesn't end because we're going to get whatever the next one is. And she is very annoyed about it. It's always said that's why she doesn't like the movie. It's the same
also
thing.
Also like my aunt. Looking at you, Kim, she was very mad about it.
It's the same thing people said about Dune Part 1. It is not a thing that's ever really bothered me, but I think unlike even those 2 examples, I think those movies do have their own story arcs that start and end. And obviously there are story arcs over the course of the entire Lord of the Rings series, and there will be story arcs that span over the entire Dune series. But I would say there is not really any conclusions across the Spider-Verse.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
I think that's why they introduced Gwen first. Because I think Gwen is the only Gwen gets her storyline, her basic human storyline.
She
does her character arc. Yes, like I think that's honestly why they decided to like let Gwen do the introduction kind of vibe, and I feel like that's maybe when they were probably repurposing this, it's like we can expand on Gwen more because it's not as necessarily as like punchy of a conclusion because Miles is still our main character.
Yeah, and I think it's clear it isn't. I would not say that anybody would mistake this for a Gwen Stacy movie.
No, but I think but I definitely look at this movie more as, in a way, kind of. I don't want to say buddy cop because they're definitely at odds at certain points, but like it feels a lot more of like. And I'm usually very like, especially like in a kind of kids movie, I'm always kind of like I don't care about the romance, but at the same time it's like. And it's like, and I would say that, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of think you guys should just be happy and just do the thing. But
I think it's slightly different in this because it is about 2 people. The romantic part of it, I can't really care about. Like I remember as a kid in middle school,
I hate that I give a shit about that stuff. I don't know what that. I don't know who. It's
just like a human reaction. I don't think it's like. I think most people, but you just know as an adult that these people that you thought you were madly in love with at 15 will not factor into your life.
But we're also not to mention traveling spider people, Chad.
But I think that is my point, is that the reason that this feels more earned than when it's just like a regular movie about kids who are in love with each other that I don't care about, is because this is about two people who feel like they've got nobody, because not some of, like, literally have lost family members, but also can't tell people that are close to them the most important thing in their life, and they found somebody they can connect with in a way. And that's why that scene where they're on the roof that you were talking about, where they sit upside down, and she says, like, nobody, I can't talk to anybody like I can talk to you, because, and he says, like, because we're the same. So it is, I'm with you that I don't normally give a shit about children's romantic storylines, but
I mean, they are like 16 years old in this one, so I mean, we definitely have also watched our fair share of, like, I mean, I think he's technically older than Tom Holland. No, wait. He's older than Tom Holland was in Homecoming, I think, at this point.
Which is just so weird, because obviously Tom Holland, although doesn't have perpetual old face like our boy Toby did in the first movies, is still, like, not a child.
And I guess, like, now that we're on the subject, how did you feel about all the cameos?
Obviously, there are some absolutely great Easter eggs in this movie. Can I call out? The best one is the point, obviously. Yeah.
The point was fantastic. The point will never not make me laugh, and I don't. It shouldn't keep making me laugh. And even though I knew it was coming, it's still always funny.
It's great. It's great.
Second one, I'm happy that I was wondering. I mean, we definitely did see Donald Glover in the last one before this, but I was kind of happy to kind of. And I feel like this might just be kind of the conclusion to his arc, because I think he's still supposed to be playing that same Prowler character from Homecoming. Yeah. So I feel like this is very much like kind of putting a bow on that character, and also like a very cool way to be like, oh, this character who would not exist without you is such. It's also such a weird, like, kind of like pop culture thing where an actor basically helped create a character who has now become such a big part of, like, I don't know, I guess the Spider-Man ethos.
And listen, I like Shameik Moore. I don't think he's like an incredible voice actor, but he clearly works for the character.
I don't really know if he could do anything like this, because I mean, I didn't know that's actually just his voice. It's like, because he did a little thing beforehand at Alamo, and they showed him talking. I'm like, oh, I thought you were doing your voice like higher pitch, but this is just kind of how you sound. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, I just kind of like was surprised. I think he's like close to our age.
He's 28, so yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was just kind of surprised. I thought he was doing like a voice on more than he was doing with this. But I was surprised.
He's a really good actor. If you guys haven't seen Dope, which is one of my favorite movies of his. I mean,
that's what it was. I could not fucking remember the name of the movie when I was in the theater.
Also in the Wu-Tang Show. He's really good in that too.
But yeah. I mean, I think like everybody they casted in this movie, like voice actor wise, everyone's bringing their A game. Everyone's very good. And I don't like that my brain was already doing the whole, like, I know which moments they're going to use in the eventual end motivational montage for somebody. And I'm like, they're using that one and that one and that one. But I think it's because they did such a good job with it in the Into the Spider-Verse movie at the end for that. But and also, I mean, like, fucking Brian Tyree Henry's so good as his dad. And then
I think it is the casting is underrated in movies like this. I do think that, like, because oftentimes, especially Disney, is guilty of just like, we'll just grab big names so they can do the press tour, whether or not they're good actors or not. Like, shout out to The Rock, but I don't think The Rock's contribution to Moana is his excellent voice acting.
We talking about, man? We're gonna get a live action Moana, Che. Don't you want that?
Don't want to talk about it. They fucked my girl Ali.
So they didn't cast her, did they? They didn't cast her. What the fuck?
I think she said herself she's too old for it, which fair enough. But that's all I can. It's the only reason I was ever going to see that movie.
Who gives a fuck?
But I mean, even like Jason Schwartzman in this, who plays Spot,
I didn't know that was him.
Which is
my girlfriend.
Should we talk about Spot? One of the best, like, I think one of the best visual villains ever.
It's definitely a villain that
just
works
like great
perfect.
Fights.
Great with this, and I think they definitely also saw how cool Mr. Did you play the Spider-Man video game?
Yeah.
I think they also looked like Mr. Nobody was like,
which we see a lot of Spider-Man video game in this movie, which I do.
Yeah, but I'm happy that we got to see our man from the Spider-Man video game popped up for a second as well, and also the Spectacular Spider-Man. That was also very cool as well. Like, they even showed like the MTV Spider-Man. That was like another cool. Like,
there, I mean, obviously because we saw it in theaters, we couldn't like pause. I do want, when this is like available on digital, I really want to go through and comb through every single Spider-Man we see in the Spider-Verse
I did see one screenshot that if you guys go see it again, keep an eye out for it. When they do talk about Miles' spider being taken away, they see the spider in front of a kid with braids on it who looks very similar to Prowler Miles. So I think it's like, I don't know, that was a very kind of cool, like, they already were like kind of hinted at that Miles was also this, another version of him was also supposed to be bitten. That's why I kind of was drawn to regular Miles.
Yeah. So let's talk about the big reveal.
Shout out to return of Mahershala Ali as well. That was also a very cool, like, was that as good as a Killmonger return? I don't know, but also it was still like, the Killmonger return is still one of my favorite, like, surprises in a movie I've seen in a couple of years. But
it played so well.
I'm very happy that Mahershala Ali is back, because I was so, like, his death was definitely needed, which also, like, before we get into the final part of this movie, my whole thing was like, their whole, like, you need sacrifice in your life for this to happen. And I'm like, he already fucking lost his uncle. He had his Uncle Ben moment. Like,
so that's he has his Uncle Ben moment.
Yeah.
What he hasn't had yet is the captain dying, which is the other, like, what they call them?
Canon moment.
Canon moment.
Which I kind of did. I liked that. I liked how, like, I did definitely like how they were, like, balancing the whole meta nature of what being a Spider-Man is. But I was like, I guess, did Captain Stacy die in the in the comics? I actually could not tell you if that's true or not. I mean, Spider-Man definitely did lose Gwen. I think Gwen losing her Peter is mirroring that.
Yeah.
So I guess like maybe like, but I guess it's also a lot of like the conversation that I'm sure creators had, and I feel like also Marvel's lost the plot about with Spider-Man, is like, do these sacrifices make the character? Or is it the fact that this character is allowed to exist despite these things? And does the character necessarily need these traumatic events to be a good person?
And I think, like, that's what the third movie is going to be about.
Yes.
Whether or not you can change the course of your fate, for lack of a better word, and still be Spider-Man. Which, of course, a lot of this is also about, like, I mean, it's about identity, in that he's being told by Miguel that he's not even Spider-Man. He's not a legitimate Spider-Man, not even really. He is the original anomaly, as he calls him. I think we are going to contend much more with that idea in the second movie, which will be about whether or not he can save his father, and whether or not that will actually destroy the course of reality.
Which, I mean, obviously we don't fucking know how it's going to work out, but it's like, it seems very much like the whole, I mean, I think like even like a lot of the issues or people had when Miles was created in the first place, like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, why is he replacing Peter? Like, he's just a made up new character. And just kind of over the last little bit over a decade, I want to say, it's very much like becoming his own character and its own like motivations and everything like that. Which I think like it's like both a good meta commentary, but also a really good way you can build up a character like this, which I don't actually know any other characters in comics that you really could like mess with this idea over. Like, so I think Miles Morales is one of the only characters I could think of that was able to take up a mantle of another character and allowed to kind of exist on his own. I mean, but like, instead of like but also coexist with the original still being around. And I think that's such a line that no one's able to like balance in a good way.
And part of that is the nature of the character Spider-Man. I mean, there isn't really any other example of a character, even in the convoluted, fucked up canon of comic books, where you have multiple different successful ongoing versions of them in like I would say Gwen Stacy, Miles, and Peter Parker are three excellent characters who are all three spider people.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even like Spider-Man 2099, the comic, that's Miguel O'Hara in the future, which is like also like he's like another thing. I mean, it's kind of also, he's such a fucking hypocrite as well, because he's like also a new Spider-Man that was kind of, I don't know if they're gonna follow us in the comics, but I think in the comics he accidentally gives himself spider powers. Yeah. So it's kind of like this whole other bullshit that he's up his own ass a bit.
Well, I think that obviously, like, that's why I really love the Miguel O'Hara character in this movie, is that he is the villain in a way, but he is not a villain, because his motivation is good. He's trying to save the universe, and he's going about it in a way that he believes is real. And those are always, like we've said a million times over and over again, the best villains in movies are the ones that think they are right. And the great villains are the ones that probably are right. And the truth is that Miguel O'Hara is probably right that Miles probably shouldn't risk saving his father to maybe destroy the existence of everybody, of all the
everybody. And that makes sense. And which I think that's why I love like Oscar's voice acting so much in that scene where it's like, we are the good guys.
Yeah.
Like we are. And it's like, it just felt so like, I loved what they shot that and how hollow it felt. But also I was thinking about like, it's funny I was thinking about too, I'm like, man, man, I get like why Gwen's kind of being a dick about it, but it's like also I'm like, damn, Peter, like our Jake Johnson Peter with and I'm like, you're kind of being a dick about this too. But also I was thinking about the original Into the Spider-Verse where he's not the best guy. Like he leaves Miles behind. He's like, he doesn't trust Miles. He almost like, he like very much is like he's a big believer in self-sacrifice. He's somebody like who doesn't, and it's like, I think that's also like each character isn't set in stone. None of these characters are perfect.
Yeah.
And I really do like that in these whole evolving things because we even see his character who's like kind of has to go through his own existential crisis with dealing with his kid. And then like, I love the whole moment with, we didn't get to see them interact a lot, which is unfortunate, but in their like 3 or 4 minutes of them together, it was just like them being back as like old friends immediately. And that was such a good little scene. I mean, Mayday was cute, but it was also just the whole like hold my baby conversation was just a lot of fun between the two of them.
Yeah. I do think there is a lot of heart in this movies and really well executed character development, and they stay true to these characters in a way. Like you said, we see these characters that like characters can do frustrating things. It is frustrating that Gwen Stacy chooses not to reveal the truth to Miles, but that's a very human thing. She is not sure about whether or not it is a good thing to tell him the truth about why he's not been invited to this, clandestine universe saving organization. Whether or not you believe that was a good decision or not is of course up for debate. And that's part of what the complexity of this movie is really, successfly doing. I do think that I think they should have talked more about how do they not just have to wait for every Spider-Man to have all their like canon deaths before they tell them about this thing? Isn't that why they're like, you can't tell him? Obviously, he's like the original anomaly, but they also were like, you can't tell him. No. Because his fucking dad hasn't died.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think it's a lot more. It just seems to be more that like he's very like, I think he's just a wild card, and I think that's what it really is.
That doesn't track.
Because they tell what's his face, Spider-Man India.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We know that he doesn't have the canon event.
That was also a really fucking fun ass scene. Cool fucking backdrop, insane city. Like I loved it. His entire little vibe was amazing.
I don't know anything about Spider-Man India. I'll be straight up. What's the canon that like Mumbai is New York now?
It's
Mumbai. What happened there?
Mumbai.
Yeah, but it's Mumbai in Manhattan, not Mumbai in Mumbai, right?
No. Okay, I think in the comics it's actually Mumbai, but I think they were just kind of having some fun with this one.
Okay. I was I would love to know what happened in that universe that India is America.
But also,
or I guess America is India.
Also, the still whole like I love. It's like, I mean, sometimes you get annoyed seeing like my theater was actually pretty respectful. Besides people being like a bit too wow about things, like unfortunately, a woman next to me was like. To like when they like announced that he'll be returning in the next movie, I'm like, what did you think? I was like, what the fuck do you think was gonna happen?
It would be the only way that would be surprising if they were like, Spider-Man will not return.
That would be insane. I was just like, I'm just like, did you not like? What did you think was gonna happen? He just did. And also like the whole like when Prowler took off his mask, I'm like, of course it's gonna be Miles. Like who the fuck else would it be? Like
right.
It's like who else would it be? Like that's the whole fucking point of it.
It's not. It's there. They don't even pretend like it's a.
No,
it's a good reveal. It's not a surprising reveal, I should say.
But I'm saying, if you ever see Che and I with braids now in the podcast, you now know that we're replaced with it. I was wondering about this now, like, because we don't do the evil mustaches. It's now evil braids.
But like,
you heard it here first.
Hold
folks.
on. His mom had no questions. That he just.
I mean, his uncle did apparently.
Yeah, but his mom wasn't concerned about.
His mom's taking dirty money. She's clearly going through some shit. All right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess, but I do love him being like, I'm Spider-Man, and she just goes, who?
I think that
the reveal.
You picked up better than I did.
The reveal, though.
You did better than I did, though.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even put together, like, my dumbass was like, because, I mean, I think he's 1610 in the movie.
Yeah.
But 1610 is actually what the Ultimate Comics originally was. In the comics, it was 1610. So I didn't think that I forgot that they called his universe 1610 in the movie.
And I think they're banking on most people will just they'll see it, or they won't really remember, or they won't really care that was revealed. But I do think that, like, because as soon as you see, he scans his eye into the, honestly, horrifying spider machine that they built.
I thought in a fucked up way they were all just getting killed.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that I was like, oh, he's actually going back, and I thought it was gonna be a whole dark thing. He's like, oh no, we just murdered them.
Yeah.
Or like Miguel was just like, yeah, we just killed them, and just like I thought that's what the whole.
But I guess that would disrupt the canon too, though. Like, you can't just kill them. Yeah.
And I think that might make Miguel a full-on villain in that situation. Which, in the end, I mean, like, we're supposed to probably like lean into the fact that's like I'm really wondering what the whole like. I mean, obviously, I guess the Spot is still like the main antagonist bad guy, but.
Oh, I mean, I'm a sucker.
We can talk.
So I was going to say, when they scan the eye and the Earth 42 pops up on this, it literally says like origin Earth 42. And I was like, okay, so he's getting sent back to.
Yeah,
we get told a few times in the movie that spider's from Earth 42. Obviously, the opening shot.
I'm just stupid.
It's not. I don't know. I think it's fine. I just wish that because I don't think there's any reason to do that. Like, it wasn't. It's not like an Easter egg.
Yeah, I don't think that it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a reason to do that. Because I think my brain was just like, oh, he wears 42 on the jersey a lot. 42 is just shown so much in his world, just as a number. I mean, obviously Jackie Robinson, but I mean, we just see it like a lot in that world that I just don't even like really like.
Yeah, and I think most people would not have caught it, even people who are watching it very closely. And I'm not even saying that, like, I would say unlucky for me, because I think it a little bit ruined the reveal. Because especially also once you notice that, you also notice that the shot of Gwen when she's outside the window, you never see Miles inside, obviously. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, she's in the wrong universe, or I guess they all are in the wrong universe. They all went to 1610 looking for him. Yeah, it's a small nitpick, honestly.
But also, I was thinking, like, it's funny too. Besides, like, our Peter Parker on Gwen's team, everyone else there isn't like a Peter Parker.
Yeah,
like traditionally a Peter Parker.
I think that's why it's very clearly why, like, Spider-Punk is sort of the catalyzing event that starts this whole like really revolution in the Spider. What were they called? Spider Corp?
Spider Society.
Whatever.
I don't know.
But I mean, it's clear because he is obviously he's the punk. But I think my favorite part of the scene was when he quits, or the favorite part of the movie is when he quits, and he is like, I'm out, and he drops the. And also I was like the whole little, like, I was like, it's like one of those things, like, I really definitely was going to come back around, but like the whole him just like stealing shit when he was walking in. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad, I get why that came back around in the end. And also, it is also very fun that you get to play with all these characters who are also all very smart in their own little universes, their own little corners, where they're all able to be very, like, clever. And even, like, Miles at the end was like, oh, I actually had a plan this entire time. And it was like, yes, this is, like, each of these characters. Can we talk, his plan, okay, does it make any sense? His plan is to just run as far away from the building and then jump past them.
Uh-huh.
They could just also jump.
Yeah, but he jumped better.
Okay, listen, I'm not here to nitpick the mechanics of a superhero movie, but I was like, this plan sucks.
But it worked.
I know he can go invisible, but they know exactly where he's going.
It almost didn't work.
It almost didn't work.
It relied on one girl he flirted with a little bit to let him through.
Yeah, that part I didn't love that part. It's a little thing. It's not super important, but her, like, falling in love with him a little bit.
I didn't seem like they fell in love.
There's real, like, goo eyes staring at him.
Yeah,
like,
but you got goo. Listen, Chad, you go to a bar, got goo eyes sometimes. That means I'm gonna fucking save the world for somebody, you know. I think they also wanted to have more people on, like, the Gwen team, and I think they needed her moment of being like, oh, she's like not a complete asshole mode.
The team up shot of them, it got an applause in my theater, which I thought was interesting.
It wasn't necessary. I mean, at least to me, it was like, in my brain, I'm like, oh, cool, we get Nicolas Cage back next movie. And I was laughing.
It's weird. Why wasn't he in this movie?
I think because, like, I think they were just pretty much kind of saving them for, coming back around again. I guess
he couldn't have got like one scene in the.
I mean, does John Mulaney gets? I mean, maybe all the people who weren't in that scene besides Kimiko was like, they were like, fuck this shit. Apparently, maybe like like. Maybe he doesn't seem like very much like I want to work with other people, and Spider-Ham's a literal pig. Listen, it was a spider horse. I really shouldn't know if I talk about that, but
it's a spider T-Rex. So.
The spider T-Rex, and then when he'd use the webs was like honestly the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was just a lot of things where like this shouldn't be as funny as I'm finding it right now. Why is it a mask? He has a human face. Thank you, Spider-Punk.
The movie's amazing.
How would you feel if your not girlfriend from across the universe was definitely hanging out at another guy who's definitely cooler than you's house all the time?
I mean, not just hanging out, definitely having sex. Like there.
Yeah, that was a weird vibe.
It's a part of the movie that like. You need Miles to have this like jealous motivation or whatever, and it plays for a couple of jokes. Again, I just am not super interested in storylines about children having sex. I'm sorry. I get it, and obviously we don't see it, which is.
I think the whole joke is that that's the insinuation, but I don't actually think they're actually supposed to be.
I mean, he says like you left your toothbrush, doesn't he? I guess you could leave your toothbrush over your friend's house, but I think it's heavily implied, and then never not. It's never.
But also he's very clearly trying to like help them out. Also, I don't think he's like. Actually, we're not talking about this, but it also definitely would get on my skin like you're hanging out at that guy's house. It's like, fuck, how are you even cooler with your mask off?
Yeah, and obviously he helps him. I mean, he is, like I said, he's the catalyzing event for all this stuff. I mean, I do love to like use your whole hand that he whispers at him to.
Yeah, that was like, it's like these movies definitely do a lot of great moments of being like, come back around to something. Everything's kind of a learning experience. And I think that's a really good way to portray that character to someone who's like clearly learning more and more as time goes on. And when you see them actually pull from like past behaviors or past experiences that we both have gone through together, it does pull off a great moment. Which also, I mean, like even the scene where he jumps from the train, and I think, is that the scene where we also get like a John Mulaney weird cameo in relation to it, which I kind of did find funny that Spider-Pig's speech to him is something that he kind of keeps in the back of his brain as motivation. I guess a pig talking.
I missed that. I didn't see.
I just heard John Mulaney's voice in something where they're kind of like, it was a, but it's also, yeah, I don't know. If a talking pig told me something, I probably would remember every word for the rest of my life.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, I think honestly, the only criticism I have is a criticism that it's not actually a criticism.
That the movie
didn't
end. Yeah.
I think that's my own thing.
Yeah, I do think that there's a legitimate criticism to it. It doesn't bother me, but like it probably, if this movie had a complete story arc, it would probably be raised in my estimation. Now, that is, with all the stuff they were doing, would have been impossible in the time they had, as we saw. So it's hard for me to contend with both those two ideas at the same time. But certainly, telling a complete story is difficult. And as I've said on this podcast a million times before, in relation to a million different things, including 1,000 different TV shows, the hardest thing in the world to do is end a story. And right now, this story has not ended. And like I said, I'm confident that we will get something good out of this, but there is a version.
That is true.
That this is not good.
But I think one of the benefits about having a movie that like this, that is also animated, is that they definitely had to have written out this entire thing already.
I think this is basically done story-wise.
Yeah, I think the story's already been written, and if they like, I mean, honestly, I think it's like kind of at this point so hard to fuck up because everything they built up into it. I think you're gonna be just fine.
And the truth is, this story, unless it is horrendous, it will decrease the.
How would they even make this that bad though?
Yeah,
I'm really.
But it still will be a visual masterpiece, and I don't think masterpiece is too heavy or too.
No, I don't think so at all. I think Into the Spider-Verse was an animation masterpiece, and I think this movie took everything that was great about Into the Spider-Verse animation wise and bumped it up.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think like chase sequences are so difficult, and they made it so hard for themselves. And they didn't make it as difficult as they did, and all the little like Spider-Mans and even like the like shockbacks like Andrew Garfield, Toby, and I think obviously they might be saving our most recent Spider-Man for the final, like for the next movie. But it's like I think it's gonna be a quick cameo or something. It's kind of weird at this point he hasn't showed up, you know.
Yeah, I think it's maybe in a lot of ways like too big. It's like too big to have Tom Holland.
They did mention him though. They did mention him though.
Yes.
The little nerd.
Yeah.
I
would. We have seen everybody else so far, so it wouldn't.
We even fucking saw Venom universe, which I didn't even know because I've never seen the Venom movies.
Is great. That's why, you know what I was thinking about the whole time. I was like, Corey has no idea who this woman is.
I have no idea.
I was these movies, and I'm in the theater like this scene's great because she's the best part of those movies for sure.
People were cheering. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I was so confused.
I know. If I had my phone on and was the kind of asshole that texted in the theater, I was gonna send you a text to me like, you don't know who this fucking woman is, do you? It is great.
I had not a clue, and then I saw like I think she had like Venom mints or something like that.
Yeah,
and I was just like, I'm assuming this is from Venom, but even then, I'm still not 100% positive on what the fuck this is.
But we are, I think, the longest we've been in quite a while. So unless you have anything else to say about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which we both agree obviously is fantastic, I think we should close it out for the people.
No, man, I got nothing else to say, honestly. I think, I don't know if this is hyperbolic to say, Che, but I'm going to say it now. If Spider-Verse 3 nails a landing, it might be my favorite superhero franchise of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that is that far-fetched, mostly because I can't think of another one that is perfect.
Nope.
Avengers has Ultron.
Dark Knight has Dark Knight Rises.
Iron Man 2 has the birds.
The bird.
It is up there for sure. I mean, it's up there already. So
definitely. This is.
If you are for some reason at this point in the podcast and you haven't seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse,
I'm sorry you can hit your pause button.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, like, you should have hit your pause button. It's probably in the title for this episode, honestly.
Yeah, unless you're stuck underneath your vehicle, which
I hope you're okay.
Hope the paramedics are coming. But if you haven't seen it, please do not watch this fucking movie on your iPad in 3 months. Go to the movie theater. See this visual masterpiece on the biggest screen you possibly can.
Please go to a movie theater.
If I ever hear somebody say Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse wasn't good, and I find out they watched it on their fucking MacBook Air, I will fight them.
You're allowed to fight them. I support this.
Other than that, it's all positivity to close this podcast. Excellent movie. And then earlier we talked about some other thing that is kind of a movie. Don't forget though, couple points of business. We are reading Black Hole by Charles Burns, book club coming to be determined. We can find a break in the hectic release. Don't forget, if you are watching along, which you really don't need to be, but
you could with this one though.
Don't. Our Curse of the Rewatch coming up is Deep Blue Sea.
I'm actually excited for this.
Where Samuel Jackson gets fucked by a shark. Gets his whole life destroyed.
I might watch that tonight.
Plugging our last Curse of the Rewatch, which is an excellent listen or watch, the Domino podcast. Go check out the YouTube channel for that, or scroll up in your RSS feed. And last but not least, don't forget to check out nexttimeon.net for all of our archive writing, all of our podcasts, all that good stuff. Anything else for the people, Corey?
Nothing else from me.
I've been Shay.
I've been Cory.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.